So the excitement for Final Fantasy XVI is really starting to ramp up. Of course, now we're getting even more story-based trailers, and I'm excited to finally sit down and listen to and watch the Final Fantasy XVI trailer, Ambition. Let's break it down from a musical perspective and talk a little bit about some of the emotions that we're hearing in the music, and yeah, let's dive in.
It has been 1,500 years since the fall of our forebears. And Valisthea has been slowly dying ever since.
So really quickly, let's just touch on this opening. A marziale, a march. This is the quintessential move that we make when we are, actually, let me take that back. At the start of this, it's all about anticipation, right? And so that melody that we hear, it can mean a few things. On the one hand, it can mean a march. It can mean the beginning of something. It can mean presence of an army, and it can also mean really just truly just anticipation. As we shift into this section, the singer in the background almost feels like they're reflecting on life come and gone. There's a somberness to this, but at the same time, we have that Final Fantasy melody. We have that theme here right in the beginning. I think it's kind of interesting when a vocal line is like that, where there's not a lot of, it's just a sung thing. That, I think, has a really interesting effect, because in this case, it sounds very sad, very somber, very reflective. And if there were lyrics, it would have a very different meaning. And in this case, it's just this like... yeah, there's still this continual forward momentum in this march. And when we let the vocal line be a melody like that, it's a really interesting experience for listeners, I think, because it's all about emotion and what that sound is conveying. Not only is it layering the instruments and the orchestration, but there's also this quality, very open vowel, open throat, very relaxed sound quality, which I think highlights the somberness and the realism that's rooted in this game. And we hear that instantly,
We're in the middle of the Deadlands.
The blight suck this place dry. Meaning no trees, no birds, and no magic.
Darkness spreads as day gives way to twilight. The mother's flame now all but a flicker.
We cannot live without the blessing of the crystals. And the crystals work their magic through us.
First of all, how cool is that? The idea that the crystals are everywhere, and man, that's awesome. But again, this crystal theme, actually, which is not lost on me that's intentional, has a bit of a morose or somber quality to it. Boom, 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 boom. That arpeggiation there is very, almost like that's what's driving the story forward. That's what's propelling this forward. Having it be front and center like that, while also having it in the background, is a really smart decision, because it brings up this anticipatory feeling of like, okay, well, the crystals are involved with everything, and they're the reason why things are there's a conflict. So, very interesting.
You have been blessed, Joshua.
But who shall claim their fading light? The Grand Duchy of Rosaria, bastion of tradition.
Note the music shift when we start talking about Rosaria.
At the very least, we must secure Drake's breath.
The Holy Empire of San Brek, where ambition is divine.
The Imperial banner shall...
So that's interesting too. Then it shifts when we talk about this area. And what's interesting is that here the rhythm is ba-ba-bum, 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 because she says, the narrator mentions ambition, and we hear the ambition in the rhythmic intensity, whereas in Rosaria right before, we also hear rhythmic intensity, but it's a little bit more of a heroic sound quality. And actually Rosaria will more than likely be the hero of this, that's sort of the good or the allied state, I'm pretty sure, even just based off the music.
Fly over every city in storm. All shall bow before their emperor.
The Dalmekian Republic, whose fortunes shift with the desert sands.
And what of our wise rulers? Goaded into war without any thought as to what chaos it might reap.
The Iron Kingdom, forged in faith and fear.
Their souls were sullied with the stain of ether. I merely cleansed them of their corruption.
Or the kingdom of Waloed, indomitable in its isolation.
The dark swallows more of the realm with each passing day. And as the fringes fade, the
Ooh, that's nice to hear that chorus in the background. Again, so it's interesting because I thought that each of those themes were based on the city-states, but now that we're like in this melody, it's actually just it is the introduction of the city-states, obviously, but musically it's not necessarily like different for each single one, although it does peak now-ish, but it also peaked when we were talking about the, consuming the ether and stealing the ether. So now we've got this full chorus in the background, which of course we understand and we love. And we know if we've played Final Fantasy XIV, that Soken's method of using chorus to bolster and double up the sound of the orchestra is always there for effect and for making us feel, sort of this grandiosity and this sort of regality.
people flock to the mother crystals.
From a single spark, will the land ignite? In the year 860, the Imperial army will march upon Rosaria. And from the slaughter shall a new shadow rise. Fall upon the dominants, painting their destinies black as night.
Our ability to summon beasts of great might should command respect, but instead has left us outcasts.
And so I became their puppet.
So this is really crazy too. I mean, sorry, I'm like completely enamored by this. So when we see the blood on the child's face and we see Ifrit and we see him become the Phoenix, there is the surge. And I think it's interesting because if we understand that Final Fantasy XVI, the War of the Icons, or whatever the working title of this is, we understand that the Icons are, the Icons, they're all part of this as a main focal point. And so it's natural that the music now is starting to peak at this moment when all the icons are being revealed to us.
What makes them think they have the right to use us? To leave us to die when our bodies are spent?
I'll crush him! Flame!
Because we're having this medieval quality of this game too, you hear it has a little bit of a Baroque dance, and I think there's not only a bit of desperation, but there's a lot of angst. Well, obviously, look where I paused, but there's a great deal of angst in this music, and especially this is quite a bit of like a morose dance. Fast tempo like that, so intense, and again, there's that surge and that violence, but it's like classical medieval violence, so everything is like, it's very sharp, very tight, and it's all just, again, this clash of these larger-than-life characters and these larger-than-life beings, and just that sort of there's the constant clash and struggle, and you really very fast rhythms.
It is you who shall bow to me!
Very well. Come then. Show us the strength of your will.
Rise, ye crownless kings. A reckoning is upon you. A war.
That looks like Sephiroth, doesn't it?
War of the icons.
You know, I find myself a little stumped about this game because I don't really know what to expect, and I have no idea based on what I've watched in terms of combat and in terms of gameplay, like what this game is going to play like at all. Certainly, I know I have a distinct feeling that the story will be very good, and we know the music's going to be phenomenal. It's just so interesting. Using Baroque elements makes a lot of sense, and we're going back to this medieval quality of, you know, this sort of ancient quality of Final Fantasy, where we're going back to, you know, things like Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, and so there's a different energy to this that's very interesting. And I think what's been kind of difficult for me is shifting my brain from Final Fantasy XIV that I've been playing for so long and switching it to a mainline Final Fantasy, what this musical language will bring. And I'm waiting and really curious to play this so that I can see where Soken goes and how Soken evolves, because the reality is, as you understand, that musicians and artists and composers, we're always evolving and we're always changing, and everything we do makes us better for the next project. And so we're never done. And so it's interesting to me how much of this game is going to be very rooted in this Baroque classical storytelling. And then as we understand it in literature and in art, those things also influence the musical landscape. And so in some ways, even though this is a brand new title coming out in the summer of 2023, we are also hearkening back to the tradition of art and music cohabitating. And so yes, composers now can arrange things in whatever style they want based on whatever they're seeing. But it is also really interesting to ponder and consider the idea that because this is set in a medieval time period, we are also getting this medieval and Baroque style music. And so in some ways, it reminds me a little bit of what's come before and that full circle mentality. So it's pretty cool. Hopefully this was interesting to watch. You know, it's hard with me with these trailers because I watch this and I want to just focus on the trailer, but then there's this music going on in the background that's so intense, and like trying to decipher what each little shift and pivot means. It's very interesting and exciting and a bit challenging, to tell you the truth. So anyways, always, there's a lot of Final Fantasy on the channel. I hope you check it out, and I will talk to you later, okay? Bye.